So I've been wanting to make a video before the year ends, and it's just been hard to put these thoughts together, knowing the audience and the types of videos that I've been historically been putting together. So the title of the video is a bit of rage bait. That is, good movies and shows don't require analysis. The keyword here being required. So I figure I will improvise this however the thoughts come out and see what comes together. And the key thing here is that there are different levels of analysis. But one of the things I've observed this year is that when you don't analyze a show deliberately or overanalyze specifically, you get to enjoy the show for whatever it is. And that depends a lot on your state, on your mental state. And that is your state at the time, your mood, everything. So you could watch the same movie and you could watch the same show at different points in time, and you will perceive them, you will process them very differently. Now, another thing that I've observed is that I really don't think that any given movie or any given show or any given piece of art by itself has some kind of inherent brilliance or value to it. Is more what the audience, the spectator, is projecting onto it. And there's no good or wrong here, or better or worse. It's just a matter of taste, and it's just a matter of preference, and it's just subjective. A lot of times I've noticed that when we overanalyze something or just analyze too deeply, we might just end up praising the exercise, the intellectual exercise or jujitsu that we do in order to find meaning in very intricate ways within a particular composition. And maybe that's the real art, I think art happens when somebody's actually listening to the music, watching the show, watching the movie, and interpreting it in their own ways. It's not a coincidence that like every show and every movie has their own fandoms, and these fandoms have theories about the show that sometimes a lot of people consider richer than what the creators canonically wrote into the story. And you have these little universes and little fan fictions that are taking place in these communities that are bonded together and that have an attachment to these particular interpretations, right? When I made videos before, I would get a lot of comments, and that's analysis videos about from a lot of comments like, oh yeah, I get what you're talking about, the different themes and the layers and the Easter eggs, but it's still boring. It's still too slow. The pacing is still too slow. It's still bad writing. It could be, it could be better. It could be better packaged. It could be more condensed, and the reality is that those comments aren't wrong, and it depends a lot on what I was saying before, what your mental state and your mood is at the time. So it's not about, it's just some people aren't getting it. It's just some people aren't seeing, like all this depth that you have to do all these like over analysis to get, or not over analysis, because some people do catch more things just passively, that are really good at catching things passively. Like even if I weren't over analyzing a show, like you can quickly see and say, okay, I see what they're doing there. Oh yeah, so this is a metaphor for this, etc. Yada yada. And that's cool to see, right? But that doesn't necessarily elevate a show in itself. That doesn't always elevate a show in terms of enjoyment. In terms of you finish watching it, and then you feel like, wow, that was very enjoyable. That was a very fun film, a very fun show. You don't always feel like that. So this year I found myself rating very high movies that have been, massively rated, either average or low, because not only I found them enjoyable, I found depth in them, that it's just like, wow, it's impressive. Like, I know that this is just me projecting. This is just me projecting onto the show. Maybe some of the stuff that got put into these films was deliberate. Maybe it wasn't, but it doesn't really matter, right? Because it's not about, you just have to look deeper into this or this particular way, It is however you feel in the moment. And it's not that, for example, in that example that I gave, where I rated very highly some movies that weren't, popularly considered really good this year, is that doesn't really mean that I didn't see the technical flaws, that other people were pointing at. Like, it's just that depending on the lens that you're taking to look at something, some of those flaws could look like features and not bugs. And maybe if I watch those movies or those shows again in the future, my mind will change. Ideally, my perspective should change, because then that should be a signal that, my mind is in flux, right? That I'm changing and evolving as a person over time. And that doesn't mean that your mind is just improving, right? Like, it's not about improvement. It's about change. It's about continuous change. The reason why I'm mentioning this also is because another way that this could be misinterpreted, this message, is that, you see, when we watch cartoons when we're children, and then we watch them again when we're adults, and then we realize that there was a lot of symbolism that was packed into those cartoons, but we just couldn't grasp them before because we were children. So since our minds are better at decoding those symbols now we can grasp them. I don't think this is necessarily the same case, because that would imply that your mind is just better equipped, right? But that's not everything. It's not just the ability to decode the thing, right? Is your state in decoding that thing and what value you're assigning to it. That's why sometimes you might watch a movie and you can see that it's technically very strong. Like, I watch a few movies this year and shows that I thought, wow, this is technically very strong, but I find it boring. I don't care. I can see what they're doing here. I can see the symbolism, but it feels flat to me. I'm not vibing with it. I'm not feeling it, So it's not that I'm missing something. And then that just rhymes so much. This rhymes so much with like feedback that I've seen, over the years from other reviewers, about stuff that I've seen, that I didn't agree with at the time. And now I'm retroactively looking back at those, and I'm like, okay, I see what they mean. They aren't wrong, They're just evaluating a particular dimension of this thing, of this movie, of this show, in a more focused way, right? While I was just, very entertained with this other dimension of it, because to me, at the point in that mental state, in that mood, it felt fresh, it felt new, it felt novel. Novelty is the key thing. And some things get tiring after you see them a few times, right? That's why, like the whole theme, there's nothing new under the sun, but there are definitely ways to make the things that already exist rhyme in very creative ways, right? And there's always going to be something out there that's going to hit the spot. But most importantly, that will always depend on the state that you're in. The state of being, not the state of knowing, not the state of analysis, not the state of reasoning, not the state of thinking. It is a state of being. Like, if you can't relate to that, you relate to it. And if you can't relate to it now, maybe you relate to it in the future. And that's pretty much it. And that applies to everything in life. Analyzing things very deeply is very fun. Very, very fun. And I love doing that. But I think sometimes, and I feel like this doesn't get talked about enough, which is why I'm making this video, the most enjoyment and the best insights arrive from not doing anything, from not trying to decode anything, for not trying to interpret anything, for just experiencing the thing as is, and just enjoying it for what it is. Just enjoying it for what it is at the time, right? Because it's like that whole saying, it's like, no man is the same when he enters a river twice, because it's not the same river and it's not the same man entering that river. I think is the same concept capture there. And that concludes my thought for this year. Sometimes it's good to enjoy things for what they are. while it's fun and games to analyze and dig deeper for the mysteries of the world, sometimes, the beauty of things sit simply right in front of our eyes.